CENTCOM says the strikes are completed. The same day Trump says a deal's 2 to 3 days out, the same day Iran's Quds Force commander draws a new corridor from Hormuz to Bab al-Mandab. 3 statements, 3 directions.
And every one of them with a straight face.
This is Iran War Daily. We'll unpack what CENTCOM's completed actually means, then hold it against Trump's 48 to 72-hour deal claim and the IAEA verification read that landed yesterday.
Plus Qaani's resistance belt, 2 choke points, 1 declared lane. That's the part nobody's pricing in. Let's get into it.
Start with the word. CENTCOM didn't say pause, didn't say stand down. They said completed. That's a formal termination from the command we spent Monday waiting to hear from.
Completed against what, though? Air defense, ground control stations, surveillance radar near Hormuz? That's the eyes and ears any inspection or shipping risk regime leans on. You don't blind the room 2 days before you invite inspectors in.
That's the operational read. Diplomatically, completed could mean a discrete campaign closed, or it could mean an open-ended posture they're calling done. CENTCOM didn't draw that line for us.
Convenient. Knock out the radar, call it finished, and whatever follows is somebody else's monitoring problem.
Now put Trump next to it. KOAT has him on the record, day 101, a deal signed in 2 to 3 days. He's past vague optimism now. He put numbers on the window.
Numbers on a deal that still hasn't moved the frozen assets impasse an inch. What document is even on the table? 2 to 3 days to sign what exactly?
And that same day, FDD and Albright's team put out their June IAEA analysis. It's an independent technical read of the safeguards reports, which means Trump's claim can finally be measured against what inspectors actually know.
So I want the specific number. Where's the 60% enriched material, and is there continuity of knowledge, or isn't there? Albright's team either found it or flagged the gap. Trump's timeline doesn't survive contact with that page if it's a gap.
We'll keep those separate. The inspector's read is a technical baseline. Trump's window is a political claim. They're not the same authority and shouldn't be blended.
They sure share a calendar, though.
Then Qaani. The Quds Force commander is calling for a resistance security belt from Hormuz to Bab al-Mandab, a concrete geographic claim on the same day CENTCOM says it's done.
2 choke points, 1 corridor, and it answers the squeeze. You blockade their exports, hit Mashar, strangle the revenue, and the Quds Force draws a lane through Yemen, the Gulf, Iraq, and Lebanon to push back through. That's Iran's response architecture, announced out loud.
And it extends the Lebanon file south. Arachi kept Lebanon on the official diplomatic track last week. Qaani just pushed the geography all the way to Bab al-Mandab. Different officials, same widening map.
Meanwhile, Tehran's foreign minister says foreign forces face risks, but Iran prefers diplomacy. Deterrence and the olive branch out of the same mouth, same morning.
That's the week in one frame. We opened on a ceasefire rupture, moved through confirmed strikes, and now we're landing on CENTCOM's completed and a presidential deal clock, while Qaani and Tehran's warning point the other way.
De-escalation on the press release, the war locking in its geography underneath. I'd watch Hormuz insurance rates before I'd watch the signing ceremony.
This one's from the Times of Israel.
The U.S. military has completed strikes against Iranian air defense, ground control stations, and surveillance radar sites near the Strait of Hormuz that were launched in retaliation for the downing of a U.S. helicopter, U.S. Central Command says in a statement.
CENTCOM says it has completed strikes on Iranian air defense, ground control stations, and surveillance radar sites near the Strait of Hormuz, retaliation for the downing of a U.S. helicopter. The ceasefire collapse we've been following all week has moved from threats to CENTCOM confirming action.
Read that target list again, Sarah. Air defense, ground control, surveillance radar. That's the eyes and ears of the place. CENTCOM just blinded the exact monitoring infrastructure any inspection regime would lean on, then called it completed.
And note the language. Completed is a formal termination word from CENTCOM, not a pause, not a stand-down. Whether that's a discrete campaign or an open-ended posture, the statement adds U.S. forces remain vigilant and postured to defend. So, done, but armed.
Done but armed near a choke point that moves a fifth of the world's oil. Iranian media is already reporting fresh explosions in Bandar Abbas. If completed means completed, somebody forgot to tell the people hearing the booms.
Foundation for Defense of Democracies, with David Albright, Sarah Burkhart, Spencer Faragasso, Andrea Stricker.
The IAEA's report presents a picture of near-total, ongoing loss of monitoring of Iranian nuclear sites due to Iran's suspension of access nearly 1 year ago, an unaccounted-for enriched uranium stockpile, key activities that cannot be verified, and the persistence of long-standing compliance failures.
This is the independent technical read. David Albright's team at the Institute for Science and International Security on the IAEA's June 4 Safeguards and Verification reports. It's the baseline for the deal claim we'll get to later.
And the timing is something. Albright's team drops a verification assessment the same day CENTCOM says it finished hitting Iranian radar near Hormuz. So tell me what continuity of knowledge looks like when you've just blinded the monitoring infrastructure.
The piece is built around two reports: implementation of the NPT Safeguards Agreement and verification and monitoring in Iran, both dated June 4th. The question I want it to answer cleanly: where the 60% material is and what inspectors can actually still see.
Right, because that's the number that matters. If Albright can't account for the 60% stock, no one signing a one-page deal in the next 48 hours can either. The inspector's visibility is the whole ballgame, and it's been shrinking for months.
And it's an analysis of the inspector's reporting, not the inspector's own word. So we hold it as Albright's read of what the IAEA documented, not the agency's conclusion. That distinction matters, even when the analyst is this credible. Rachel Hersheimer, writing in KOAT.
President Donald Trump expressed optimism about a potential deal with Iran, suggesting it could be finalized within 2 to 3 days and would prevent nuclear weapons development while reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
Day 101, and Trump's putting a number on it. 2 to 3 days to signing, and he says the Strait of Hormuz opens immediately once it's signed. That's the president himself, on the record overnight. He also says he spoke with Netanyahu, and that Israel and Iran will, in his words, leave each other alone for another week. So the timeline he's describing is 1 week of quiet to close a deal he's calling final.
He's been close before. What jumps out is that the strait is still not fully open on day 101. Oil shipping is still disrupted, and his fix is, it opens the second I sign. That's the whole strangulation problem reduced to a signature. And right after CENTCOM tells us the strikes near Hormuz are completed, the radar and ground control sites, we're told reopening is a pin stroke away. Somebody's paying for those two facts not lining up.
On the document itself, what's actually getting signed in 2 to 3 days? Trump frames it as no nuclear weapons in any way, shape, or form, plus the strait. We don't have a text, and the verification piece is its own question.
Right, and the IAEA read we just hit lays out what inspectors can and can't see. You don't close a no-nuclear deal in 72 hours if nobody can answer where the 60% material sits.
Anadolu Agency, with Sahin Demir.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned Tuesday that foreign military forces operating near Iran face risks, calling for them to leave the region, hours after U.S. President Donald Trump vowed to respond to an alleged Iranian attack on a U.S. military helicopter.
Araghchi says foreign forces near Iran face risks from human errors, plane accidents, or being caught in crossfire. That's a hostage note dressed up as a weather advisory.
It's the Iranian foreign minister on X, hours after Trump vowed to respond to an alleged strike on a U.S. helicopter. And note where he plants the flag. the Strait of Hormuz, which he calls shared by Iran and Oman, far from U.S. territory.
Right, he's drawing the map. The same Hormuz CENTCOM just said it finished hitting radar sites around. You don't get to call accidents inhospitable while you're knocking out everyone's ability to see what's an accident and what's a shot.
And keep the two halves apart. Iran prefers the language of diplomacy, in one breath. We know how to speak other languages, in the next. That's the same government running the sanctions and deterrence argument that's been the obstacle all week inside Trump's 2 to 3 day window. Middle East Monitor writes,
Iran's Quds Force commander, Esmail Qaani, said a new security belt of resistance would extend from the Strait of Hormuz to the Bab al-Mandab Strait, and from the Gulf to the Red Sea.
Esmail Qaani, the Quds Force commander, says in remarks carried by Iranian media, a new resistance security belt from the Strait of Hormuz to Bab al-Mandab, Gulf to Red Sea. He's drawing a specific map, and he's citing Yemen explicitly as the model. The same morning, the Houthis announced a full maritime blockade on Israel in the Red Sea. He's pointing at an operation already underway and telling others they can join.
Hold the picture, Sarah. We just aired CENTCOM saying strikes near Hormuz are completed, and now the Quds Force commander stands up and assigns both choke points a lane. One end of the belt is where the radar got flattened. The other end is where the Houthis just shut the door. 2 choke points, 1 declared corridor, Hormuz and Bab al-Mandab. That's roughly the front and back door for crude out of the Gulf and everything bound for Suez. Insurers read that sentence and the premium moves before any missile does.
And his framing was, fighters without borders oversee your vital shipping routes. The threat has deniability built in, proxies, not the Iranian flag. Keep that separate from anything Tehran's foreign ministry says on the diplomatic track.
Right, so we've got Trump saying 2 to 3 days to a deal, and Qaani drawing a permanent proxy arc across 2 oceans on the same calendar day. One of those is a press release. Guess which one comes with coordinates?
If you value clear daily briefings, try Ebola Watch, a weekday briefing on the DRC and Uganda Ebola outbreak, covering case counts, border tracing, WHO vaccine news, and what travelers need to know. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts. We've put links to every story from today's briefing in the show notes, so you can follow the reporting behind the headlines. If something caught your ear, take a moment to read more there. That's Iran War Daily for today. Thanks for listening. This is a Lantern podcast.